The big show this weekend, the 18th and the 19th, is Big Wow. It has been a year, and we're going back to the Big Wow tomorrow. It has not been announced on Facebook. It was announced a month ago. We're not announcing it now. We're going to be at Big Wow, and Kal Kat will be there, and Mark's Cards will be there on Sunday with Kal Kat. And that is exciting. And we will see the horror host, Mr. Stanley, again, among others, some regulars, including probably the Henry Hemp guy. Probably there too. Who cares about him? Unless you, I'm not into that, but he'll be there. Let's see what else. Yeah. Next week is Fanime and Baycon, and we will not be filming this show or Baycon because they do not allow the camera into the Baycon. On Sunday, we will have Stanley in the studio, not here, but over there at the convention. We were not able to afford to actually get his autograph, but we will be able to see him on Sunday. That would be day after tomorrow. Now, that's a little intro for you. This is the night before that. Live long and prosper. Yeah. Yes, it's a comic book convention. Mainly there'll be DC guys there. A little bit about that from the cartoons. So last year was more Marvel. This is DC. Ironically, they got Stan Lee, who's Marvel. Interesting. Anyway, so next week, tomorrow, recap, and we'll put in pictures later if we get any. Okay, and that's it. Of course, it's not doing anything now. Come on, do something. Do something. Ah. Come on, do something. It was beeping before, now it's stopped. It's moving. Oh. Now, there it goes.
I'm right next to you.
It's moving around. Okay, it's R2-D2. It's motorized. There it goes.
Anna, do you want to take turn now? Yeah. Stand over there. Just ask him if you have it.
That's cool. Now, of course, it stops again. This Dalek and an R2-D2. Yeah. Hello, this is Kal Kat, and welcome to the recap of Big Wow Comic Fest 2013, where we had this Saturday's recap, and we have a few pictures that we'll put in at the very end instead of putting throughout. And they arrived at about 10, went into the dealer's room and looked around and found John Stanley, the horror host. Several misconceptions of last year's horror host adventure were sort of solved over the year. We assumed that John and I had both seen him on television during our younger years and snuck down and watched the horror host stuff. But as it turns out, we didn't. I may have, but he did not. We both watched Elvira, who came later. She was more mainstream. She was newer. And that was more of Coffee and TV36. There were some shows that he did. Also, the rumored story that I had snuck down to watch Nightmare on Elm Street when it was aired on television with my friend Jim Buffkin. It wasn't Jim. I don't know who I snuck down there to watch with, but it might have been Tim. Most likely was Martha, not Tim, because Tim wasn't around yet. The movie came out on TV a little earlier than that time period, so it couldn't have been Jim, unless they aired it again at some point. I'm guessing that I mixed two events, and that a later viewing of Nightmare on Elm Street with Jim occurred in '87 after I had met Jim Buffkin in '86, and they just got stuck together. I saw the movie a couple of times, so it's possible. More likely, the original movie was seen in the theater, bargain theaters and stuff, and on video with Martha, sneaking down and watching it. My sister would let me watch the horror movie in the hopes that we have nightmares. I didn't. The only movie I really had nightmares about was The Exorcist, not about Nightmare on Elm Street. Usually didn't lead to anything. So anyway, so the first panel that I went to was the one at 11 a.m. and that was the horror host John Stanley, who was there with a couple of other horror hosts, including Lord Blood-Raw was back, and some others. And they talked about the horror thing and showed a 15-minute clip of various different horror hosts. And therein lay another confirmation and also a reversal of the story, because they showed the 15-minute clip, and I said, and I saw the guy that I had seen. It wasn't him. It was a person after him. So it wasn't him. It was the other guy. Well, I called John Yeager after the show, asked him what it could have been that I could have seen wasn't Nightmare. I could have seen some of that stuff in '84 and '85, but he left in '84. So the guy Stanley. So I could have seen some of that when I was 13, because I had my own TV, and I probably did. It's just that it was black and white, and it was hard to tell who was. I had this little black and white TV. Hard to tell who it was I was actually looking at, and John Stanley I probably saw. I'm guessing the movies I probably saw were old British horror movies and stuff. I know that Coffee and 36 and Channel 2 would show like Yellow Submarine late at night a lot. They also showed Plan 9 from Outer Space once. I think you did that one. They also showed Bride of the Mummy. All those movies. So yeah, and Elvira did that a couple of times. Lord Blood-Draw. Lord Blood-Draw. Okay. Yeah. I did see some of his stuff over the past year. Yeah, he's and the other horror host lady too. I think the lady was a little bit better at it. Forget her name though. Anyway, then I went to lunch at Togo's, meatball sandwich. Then I went over to the French bistro for breakfast. Not breakfast. Over the French bistro. I went over to the French bistro for cookies for dessert. Then I went back there for another panel, which was on animation. Let me get this guy's name right. Hold on now. Animation. Ah, it's Charlotte Yeager. Okay, Dean Yeagle. Yeg, L-E, Yeagle, who was an animator during the General Mills Kitty cereal era, interestingly enough, and also works for Disney, and did some animation for them. Dan Yeagle, he did the General Mills characters, such as the Cookie Crook and the Bee from Honey Nut Cheerios. He might have done the Trix Rabbit a little bit. Some of that stuff. The Cookie Crook, all the General Mills stuff. Part of the reason you don't see those characters anymore is apparently, like, when Purina and Nabisco, like, merged and bought each other or whatever and took them, they took the rights to some of the characters, so they couldn't use them anymore. That's why the Bee looks different whenever if they show him. You know. So yeah, so he's gone on from there to do panel cartoons. We call them panels. They're cartoons. Little one-strip things, jokes for Playboy magazine. I haven't really been an aficionado of Playboy magazine since I was 18 or 19 or so. I used to sneak them and look at them from my dad's collection, and my half-sister's boyfriend left years ago. Fiance later, she married him. We married him for a while. Jan Amalani had a bunch of Playboys he left here. They're all gone now, but yeah, you know, when you're pubescent, you boy, you want to look at Playboys. Ooh, titillating. But anyway, this guy was later, so he was writing in current Playboy, like you know, the past decade or two or so. So there was a character in it that he called Mandy. And apparently that character's name is copyrighted, so even that one's not there now. But he copyrighted it, so it would be another character somewhere else, I guess. Who was a ditzy blonde character. Yeah. Like, that's original, but okay. He did cartoon characters and things like that. He talked about Song of the South having a exploding head in one frame that they edited out, which is kind of funny. The Brer character's head exploded, apparently. The fox guy. Actually, the Brer Rabbit hit the fox guy in the face. The Brer Rabbit's head went for a split second. And it didn't. I guess it didn't make it into the movie. Anyway, so yeah, it was Dean Yeagle. That panel was kind of sparse because I don't think people got what the actual panel was going to be about. They thought it was going to be about like writing cartoons, and right away the microphone got all screwed up, and you could hardly hear him, and it's because he had it on facing another mic that was still on, and everybody kept telling him that, including me. So finally they just pushed the mic over to the side. The other guy, the tech guy, came over and pushed it over. Didn't turn the other one off, so there was still this whine through the whole thing. So I was like, oh, man, really, guys? Okay, yeah, so there we go. Okay, right after that panel was a titillating panel following that one at 3 o'clock. Where is it? Ah, you get this. This one was called Sexuality in Cosplay. Sexuality in Cosplay. We had, let's see, ironically, you have Abby Dark, star of the role-playing fantasy Sexy Star Wars Girl, moderator. Roxanne Mita of the Comic Impact editor and columnist. And Megan Marie, a Cosblog columnist for the game Informer, and community manager, Crystal Dynamics. And Keith Zen Carter, RPF moderator in Room D. I'm reading the fact sheet on the computer. I just had to rattle off names. So the names were cosplay. They basically are relatively unknown cosplayer, RPG, internet bloggers. That's what they are. Probably in a couple of years, Kal Kat and Mark's Cards will be big enough to be panelists at this convention. That would be awesome. If we're asked, hey, we'll do it. You know, I don't know what we talk about, but we could do it. We could talk about trans tech and Starcrackers. I mean, if that took off, you know, okay, we animated this. Yeah, we'll talk about it. It was really hard. Yeah. But no, not right now. Anyway, sexuality in cosplay. Now, this panel was not sparsely attended. It was densely attended because everybody thought they were going to talk about literally sex cosplay. The word sex. So all these various characters, nefarious to somewhat vaguely handsome, they all show up, mostly guys. There were some girls in there, granted. To hear this lecture by the 3 cosplay ladies, the gist of which was that they didn't like people oogling at them and touching them if they're wearing a sexy outfit. And 2 of them were wearing a sexy revealing outfit. So basically the guy who was a former cop, he's all like, yeah, well, girls don't want to be accosted. But then he was all saying, well, if the guy was hot, you know, maybe that's a different story. You know, they can touch you. But and then they're all, maybe so. And the guy basically said, well, you know, he named an actress. I forget who the actress was, but he said, if that actress wanted to touch me and I was in cosplay, I'd like that. So he basically destroyed his own argument because he basically argued that given his druthers, he would also do the deal, so to speak. And one thing they almost got to in there, the guy that was dressed up as Thor, that was kind of out of shape like me, he wasn't me, he said, well, if it was Liam Hemsworth, you girls would be all for it. No, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, if Hemsworth walked in, the guy who plays Thor walked into the room and said, hey, baby. That's what I was thinking when I just mentioned this to John Yeager later. You know what it also would throw them off is if the nerd guy that looked totally slovenly was rich and he had a Ferrari, was parked out front and a chauffeur, then they would like him too. They'd be all like, oh yeah, So basically people are shallow. They probably wouldn't like it if it was some sleazy guy, but if it was a hot dude, they might have second thoughts. They might. So, well, they don't have to worry because, you know, Kal Kat didn't do that. So Although the irony of feminism is, I think, in terms of its ever-changing format, is that if you're actually a true feminist, you don't dress like that. In the first place, you just don't, because you don't want to attract attention to yourself, so you don't dress like that. So, and that's an American thing, as one of the foreigners pointed out in the audience. He said, well, in Europe, they don't have, they don't care. They walk around with cleavage sticking out. They don't think anything of it. But in America, we're prudish and stuff, which we are. But yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there. It depends on who is doing the groping, basically. So yeah, don't do that. Basically, these ladies should, if they're at a convention, I think that they should tell the guy not to grope them. Simple as that. Or do what Kalista did 8 years ago. The lady that played Kalista on Xena told that one conventioner that tried to hit off on her. She said, "You can't handle me." Just give him a smart remark. It's like, it ain't gonna happen, buddy, because yeah, it's just not gonna happen. Someone kick your ass. And then my boyfriend's gonna kick your ass. And then 3 of my friends are gonna kick your ass. So, like, that's all they gotta say. It's like, you're in character, right? So you can just do what you do. So if you're dressed up like a Halo chick or something, which is darn cool, actually. So you nerd dudes out there, and there are plenty of them. Yeah, don't grope the chicks, but just compliment them on their costume in a nice way. Instead of saying, "Oh, baby, that costume's really hot. You look just like that princess." Instead of drooling and ogling over the costume and going like, "Oh my God," just say something like, "It's a nice costume." Be all, chivalry and stuff. You don't need to be all sleazy. She'll reciprocate nicely if you don't do that. You don't need to be sleazy. One thing they didn't point out on the other thing also was that, like, because I left soon after that, but for the day. But another thing it pointed out, didn't really go into, is by and large there's this resurgence of hot chicks going to Comic-Con and these conventions. Hot girls actually going to Comic-Con, and they don't want to be objectified by the nerds, as I just said. But there's this. But I don't really think necessarily the hot chicks are nerds, because they're in a different class. They're looking for the job. They're looking for the hot dude. So they're not really nerds. They're just cosplaying. So they're a different group infiltrating the nerds. And they are nerds. So by their nature, they're going to not be very socially adept at things. They're not going to be very social. So they're going to say stupid stuff because they don't know any better. So just, and if if you're like letting them blog on your site and swear at you and stuff, delete them. Don't talk to them. If they're on your blog and they're harassing you, block them. It's very simple. The internet, you just block them. They go away. So that's what you're doing. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Mark's Cards in the studio with me. I'm going to do another video blog and exciting things and things. I don't think we can actually do camera film at the convention. Here's a nod to the horror hosts. Observe. This movie is going to be a succulent and bloody movie. Blah blah. It is going to be deadly. Blah blah. It is going to be deadly. You know. Look at this girl. She's about to be bitten by the vampire. You're a lazy vampire. Ew, this was filmed in San Francisco, incidentally. They can do accents. Like the Russian accent, blah. All the blood, blah, blah, blah. But it's sort of Serbian accent. Because, of course, Dracula was from Transylvania. And that's Serbo-Croatia, basically. He was basically Vlad Tepes, the Impaler. He was a very twisted guy. He liked to impale his detractors and some of the villagers in order to scare off his detractors. Blood Tempest. He wasn't really a vampire, but we say he is. Actually, vampirism, we could discuss it later with John, who is more of an expert on these things, John Yeager, that the vampire is actually a euphemism for disease and pestilence. And that is why he takes over the body and consumes it like the blah. Maybe I want to go to horror host, you think, John? Greetings, this is Kal Kat, and welcome to a slight other recap of Big Wow Comic Fest 2013. Next week, we will present a special big long episode detailing the Big Wow Comic 2013 perspective of Mark's Cards as well. Mark's Cards and I both attended the convention and then the Star Trek movie afterward. We're actually going to leave that until next week. So this is a brief recap of today. Mainly for the brief recap, we went to the dealer's room mainly for the better part of the morning, actually, of the dealer's room after the donuts and then to the convention, and then pretty much went up and down the dealer's room and met some of the artists. Several of the other characters from 4 in the dealer's room, including Dean Yeagle, the guy who does the Playboy thing. Got some stuff from him. He also did some of the Kellogg's characters. He didn't have any of those there. We met the Hardware Wars guy. We met all the Horror Host guys. Like, the Horror Host thing was, we'll probably talk more extensively about that, but they were actually doing a horror convention within the convention called the HorrorCon 2. Just like they were doing last year with HorrorCon 1, apparently. So we were actually at the second HorrorCon convention. Ooh, yeah, neat. Also, Lord Bloodraw was there, and the guy from one of the horror hosts. Yeah, I mentioned that to him that he had done, when he did one of his Toy-Con things, that briefly, for a moment or two, you can see me and Tim walked by in the background. Like during one of the things. So we were actually there. That's cool. But, because we happened to be in the background during that shot. It's so brief, though, you're not going to really see what we're talking about. But this time around, we have video, and we don't have any video from this one, actually. It's mainly still pictures. But we will be discussing it next week. We both just saw the Star Trek movie afterward. And we both liked it, so we'll review that too. So there'll be a double review of the Star Trek movie as well. So there's going to be a lot of Kal Kat Mark's Cards blogging coming up. And they're still trying to establish the format of the Valley Story / Kal Kat movie pilot, TV pilot that we're doing this summer. And also the Star Trek Chimera thing as well. Apparently we're trying to figure out how that works. Of course, we're not really a reality TV show. What we do is actually real. We go out and do stuff. Or we have a family episode and we record that. It's Dan Brown's birthday. But we did not record that. We were at the convention. Next week, Kal Kat will be at the... we'll drop by the Baycon with the picture still camera. But we'll only drop by there, and then we'll drop by Fanime, which is the big Fanimation convention, and take stills there too. And do a little bit of a blog on that later on, like a recap, because we really don't want to piss them off. Also, we don't really want to do I don't want to give away too much about the double review. But yeah, the second day of the convention was fun, and we did get to go to the Horror Host panel. Saw more about how the horror hosts, these were people that did a lot of television programming. They would play a lot of these old horror movies from the 50s and 60s, 70s, and to keep America strong, as they said. KTVU did a lot of those, and yeah, we watched them. Apparently the esoteric sort of stuff was out there too. As they were trying to figure out who was letting who watch horror and that kind of thing. But it wasn't really, at the time, it was just there. I don't think there was anyone really. We just went and watched it. There wasn't a lot of restrictions. I was wearing this Captain Kirk outfit at the movie theater. I was walking around the mall as the Trekkie, which was hilarious after the movie. And I was wearing this Star Trek the Trekkie costume, Kal Kat. Surprising people in the theater as well. It was awesome. So, to wear the costume in the mall. Oh, there's that guy from that blog show. Yep, that's right. So right on. So that's so we're gonna play the recap next week, and yeah, it was cool meeting John Stanley again, and the Hardware Wars guy somewhere. Some other artists that we met too as well, and got their autograph stuff. I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. There's another artist. Well, it's in here. I'll look it up later. But yeah, there was at least one other, and lady artist. Also, there was another panel that discussed how to make costuming, how to do synthesized costumes with plastics and resins and that kind of thing, or use leather, or how to sew them and whatnot. It was very interesting because they talked about how they made theirs, and apparently plastic printing and stuff. And very interesting because the future of the Carter robots will probably be made of some kind of cheap and efficient plastic substitute, or cardboard substitute / plastic substitute. Carters of the future. Also, a lot of the techniques that we learned for Star Trek Chimera, I had to kind of invent on the fly. I did not get them from YouTube videos, although that would have been helpful. So, yeah, aging a wall or whatnot. Yeah, we figured all of that out. And also, from the artist people, learned how to draw the, well, not learned how to draw, I already know how to draw. I learned how to just like, you know, when you do a sketch to make an action figure or drawing thing, you don't put every single detail of the whole panel in the panel at first. Then you would totally burn yourself out, which is what we did on one of the Captain Estrogen thing. We should have, I should have said, okay, I'll just do the outlines and things and inking and stuff, and then I'll go back with the outlines and penciling. Well, it's pen, it's computers, it's not penciling. And then shade everything in that needs to be shaded in, and not put speckles all over the lizard guy, not make him all scaly, put the individual scales on him. Come on, no, make it easier than that. So could be done, but it's probably a little ways off. Yeah, so Mark's Cards and I were there, and that is a little sneak preview, a sneak cap of Big Wow. I probably said Bacon, I meant to say Big Wow. 2013, day 2. Day 2 and Big Wow 2, for us anyway. I think it's the 30th Big Wow is what it was. Well, it's they've been doing it for years. It's been a couple of Big Wows. Yeah, so for now, that's it. Greetings, space fans. We're gonna give you a whole thing about the Star Trek movie. I have already seen Star Trek Into Darkness. Well, we're going to let Mark's Cards see it first, and then comment when we both have seen it. Have both reviewing the movie at the end of the big thing. There will be some regular still pictures from Bacon, but no camera stuff. And the barge scene looked way better. Like, you know, what's going on? Why am I zooming in? I'll zoom out again. Adventure. And just to say that the Star Trek movie Into Darkness was good. The spaceship, the bad guy spaceship, kind of looked a little bit like some of the early Chimera and Enterprise F designs that were preliminary for a Chimera. Also, it kind of looks a little bit like the Chimera, actually, from the current ones. So that's going to be funny. And fans will be thinking, were you just ripping off the Vengeance? the bad guy ship. I guess they don't call it that in the movie, but everybody's calling it that. Because that'd be kind of lame if they called it that. Spaceship. So yeah, no, we didn't rip it off. Just so you know, the Kaimara model was designed and built 2.5 to 3 years ago, and has been sitting in a box ever since. And we had no knowledge of the other stuff back then. The 2009 movie had come out at that point, but we'd had no other knowledge of that. So there you go. Yeah. So we had we were not on the set of Into Darkness. If we had been, we would have seen the barge scene early on when they filmed it in front of a blue screen, and it was a green screen, and then we would have seen the volcano scene as well, and the corridor running Scotty scene. Ooh. Yeah, the barge scene was on green screens when you originally see it, when you originally get to see it, and it was like you couldn't tell what was going on behind it because they were gonna like shoot that later, so it was kind of weird. Like it's like Quinto fighting this guy with black hair. He's like fighting him, and then he neck pinches him, and then this other thing happens, and then yeah, that's the scene we saw. But that's before they put up all the barriers. So, so anyway, yeah. There is a review online of Into Darkness, Kal Kat, under my regular name, and Adam Brown. And we're not going to go into any more of that, because we want to go right to the convention and talk about it afterward. Ex post facto. Ooh. Greetings, space fans, and welcome to the review of... well, let's try this again. Greetings, space fans, and welcome to the review of Day 1 of Big Wow Comic Fest 2013. So, yeah. I have a 2-day pass. I arrived as a Kal Kat. I arrived in a costume that sort of was from the Star Trek movie, the latest one. And it was... So, yeah, I did that. Let's get a better angle on this. It's not good. Yeah, so I arrived early for the so I arrived around 10 and began and went in costume. It was a blue shirt. It was a Star Trek thing. Actually, it's a bike shirt, but yeah, it passed for a Star Trek thing. So there, and yeah, so basically, yeah, that part doesn't need to be. Okay, I was in that costume, and yeah. So. Let's try this again. Hello, this is Kal Kat. This is Kal Kat, and welcome to the recap of not Bacon. Oh yeah. The guy, he essentially said, well, you know, well, girls don't like to be groped and stuff, basically. Hold on. Get down, cat. Or if you know a computer hacker, you just tell him, find this guy's address and make sure his computer disappears. No. Or whatever, but I don't know any of those, so that ain't gonna happen. So yeah, it's just anyway. So that would be feminist. Block them and tell them off, because you are playing a character when you're cosplaying, and yeah. So, no camera phone, but we can take still pictures. They really don't want video in there unless you're got permission. They figure people are sharking people and taking pictures of, like, girls and stuff, whatever. It's like, okay. So I didn't think I was, because I was doing it very subtly. No, I wasn't taking anything I was just taking mostly pictures of me in a setting behind me. So I got, like, the hair and the horror host people and whatever. And so, yeah, there was a little confusion about that, but we fixed that up. I think the Nightmare on Elm Street thing was actually later. And it was a different guy, but that's still cool. so cool. It was a different host, but John Stanley was the guy that I watched earlier on when I was younger. And yeah, so I did see him. John didn't, actually, which is kind of interesting. He saw the later ones too. He's 3 years younger than me, so when Stanley left, I was 12, and John would have been 9. He would have been too young to be watching stuff. I wouldn't. I wasn't, because I had a TV. I was watching some of that stuff. Yeah, but they were like cheesy horror movies. They were like, you know, like, Dracula has a spike, and it's black and white, and it looks really fake. And the blood would be Carol syrup and stuff. I think I did see Psycho. I think. See that one? That was cool. But that's not really, that's more of a mainstream horror movie. All the sequels were kind of dumb, though. Ew, Psycho. The birds and stuff. Ew, recall some British one. Manos, the Hands of Fate. That was Hispanic. I saw that at John's. Manos, the Hands of Fate. It's like boring, actually. He's like running around in the desert or whatever. He's got like a cape. What? So later on, I'm gonna watch a horror movie. I got the Stanley's horror movie. The Blood, what's it called? Blood something? Here, I'll get. Oh yeah, I got Teen Titans. Here. It says, this is Nightmare in Blood. Nightmare in Blood by John Stanley. I'm trying to do Vincent Price, but I'm not doing it very well. Incidentally. I sound more like the evil scientist from the Shop of Horrors. Yes. And I can do Renfield as well. Igor. Dr. Frankenstein. Horror host. I should have always done it, yes. Do not worry, horror hosts out there. I'm not necessarily going to be a horror host. I'm more of the Kal Kat, more science fiction host than horror. More science fiction-y. So I'm not going to do a horror host. Isn't that wonderful? We will activate the penile and pituitary glands of the recent dead. Make the zombie. Yes. War of the Worlds. He showed that one. The black and white one. Anyway. Blood. Blood. They did a little commercial for this movie. There you go. Blah blah. Has some no, but I do have some you know, Plan 9 from outer space. The Solonite bomb. You humans, you stupid human. Greetings, Captain.